Welcome back to Unit 4. Today we're going to be starting Unit 4 by talking about simple interest. Simple interest is a very important lesson. It really applies to everyday life. You need your calculator for this, so if you don't have it, go ahead and grab it, and let's get started right now. Welcome to Unit 4. Today we're going to be starting off by talking about simple interest, so let's go ahead and get started with that right now. So when we're talking about interest, we have two different types of interest that we talk about. We talk about either earning interest or paying interest. When we earn interest, that's when we are putting money into savings. Often a bank provides interest for you keeping money in their bank. When we pay interest when we take out a loan or borrow money for large purchases, often for a house or a car. Often you pay interest with the ability to borrow a large sum at once. So the reason that you're paying interest is because you need to borrow a lot of money all at once to make a very large purchase. Most people don't have large sums of money just laying around, so the bank helps you out by giving you money to use to buy those large things, but then they want to collect their money back plus a little bit extra, and that's the interest. So today we're going to figure out how to calculate simple interest, or the amount of money that you might be owing somebody if you borrow money, or the amount of money you might gain if you're saving money. So let's see how we go ahead and do that on the next page. Now, to find simple interest, we use a formula to calculate the amount of interest that we earn or pay. So we're going to use a formula that we're going to use to calculate our interest. Since the amount of interest is calculated just one time at the end of a time frame, we call this simple interest. There are other type of interest, complex interest. However, we're not going to be worried about today. We're only going to be working with simple interest. So let's go ahead and take a look at our formula. So our formula is I equals P times R times T. So let's go ahead and take a look at what each of those things mean. So when we're talking about I, that's going to be our interest, and that's the amount of money that we earn or pay over time. To figure out our interest, we're going to be multiplying P times R times T. The P stands for the principal. That's the original amount borrowed or invested. Again, investing is putting something in. So if you were to put money into a bank account or put money into a stock market, that would be investing. So we're going to be starting with our principal. We're going to multiply that times the rate. The rate is the percentage of the principal to be paid. So if you borrowed at 4%, then you would need to be paying 4% of the principal back. That would be the rate. Now, it's important that since this is going to be given to us as a percentage, that in order to use it, we must convert a percent to a decimal. We must convert the percent to the decimal in order for the formula to work. We're going to multiply the principal and the rate times T, and T is going to stand for time. Time is the length of the loan or investment calculated in years. So again, if they give us something in months, we're going to have to turn it into years in order to plug it into our formula. So now that we have all of our pieces of our formula, let's go see how they're applied in example A. Here we are at example A, and it says Rachel borrows $415 for 3.5 years at 2.3% interest. How much interest will she have to pay? So we're going to figure out what parts of our formula we have, what parts of our formula we don't, and then we can figure out what we need to do. So let's go through. Rachel borrows $415. Since that's the original amount that she borrowed, that's going to be our principal. She borrowed it for 3.5 years. I see the word years, so that's going to signal to me that that one is our time. At 2.3% interest. So again, even though I see the word interest, I'm not actually going to use that as I in my formula. Since I have a percentage sign there, I know that that is going to be the rate. Anytime I see a percent sign, it's a good indicator to me that that is going to be the rate. So the thing that we're missing in our formula, since we have P and R and T, is I. So we're going to be looking for interest. And it says that in our problem, because it says how much interest will she have to pay. So since they're asking us for interest, we know we're going to be looking for I. So we're going to put I as what we're going to be looking for, and that's going to be equal to our P, R, and T. So let's substitute in now the things that we have. So we know we have the principal, that's $415. We know our rate. Now, they gave it to us as a percent, 2.3%. But remember, I can't put percentages in my formula. I have to turn it to a decimal. So since I have 2.3 as a percent, I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the left, and my decimal is going to be 0.023. And that's what I'm going to substitute into my formula, 0.023. Now I've got 3.5 years, and now good news for me is that it is in years, but it's 3.5, and I can't just put in 3 1/2 because I'm going to have to need it as a decimal in order to multiply this all together. So a half is 0.5, so in my formula I'm going to have 3.5. So good news, now that I have my calculator, I can just multiply these three numbers together. 415 times 0.023 times 3.5, and that will tell me my interest. So let's go ahead and do that now. So 415, typing it into my calculator, times 0.023 times 3.5 is going to give us 33.4075. So I've got four numbers there at the end of my decimal. However, we are in the United States. And in the United States, we only have two decimals at the end of our money system. So since I have 33.4075, I'm going to have to round that to 2 decimal points. So if you don't remember how to round, there's a little rhyme to help you out. You find your place, you look next door, 5 or greater, add one more. So since our 7 is greater than 5, our interest is going to be $33.41. Make sure that I put a dollar sign there. I'm talking about a word problem, so I need to have a word answer. Let's go ahead and take a look at example B. Example B says Leonard invests $3,600 at 4% interest. How long will it take him to earn $1,152 in interest? So again, we're going to go through our problem, see the things in our formula that we have, figure out what we don't, and then move on from there. So reading through the problem, it says Leonard invests. So since he's investing that money, that's the money he's starting with. So that's going to be my principal at 4% interest. So again, even though I see the word interest, I see that percentage sign. So that indicates to me that I have the rate. How long does it take him to earn? So I don't know how long. So that means I'm probably missing time. And it says to earn $1,152 in interest. So since I see that that says in interest, that's a big indicator to me that that is the interest. So now I have the pieces of the formula that I have. So I need to figure out the one that I don't. And since it's asking me how long, clearly that's the one I'm looking for is time. So I'm going to start by substituting in the things that I have. I know my interest is going to be $1,152, so I can plug that in. I know my principal is $3,600. I know my rate is 4%, but again, I can't put 4% in there. I need to put that in as a decimal. And 4% as a decimal, if I move my decimal 2 places to the left, is going to be 0.04. And then I don't know time, so I'm going to just leave that as t. Now I'm going to multiply everything that I can together, and I think I'm going to end up with a one-step equation when I do that. I've got 1,152. I didn't do anything with that, so that's going to stay on one side of my equation. 3,600 times 0.04 in my calculator gives me 144, or 144t, because I couldn't multiply my t with the other numbers. So now I've got a one-step equation, and luckily I know how to solve these. So I'm going to draw a line down from my equal sign, or a wall, and then I've got 144 times t, so the inverse operation of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 144. When I do that, 144 and 144 are going to cancel out to 1, or leave me with just t on one side of my equation. Then I can use my calculator to divide 1,152 divided by 144, and that's going to give me 8. So t equals 8, but since this is a word problem, I need a word answer, so my answer is 8 years. And again, circle my answer. I remember I have to write my answer in years because my formula gives me time as years. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next example. So here we are at example C, and it says Jessie is looking for a bank with a good interest rate. She has $350 to invest it for 5 years. She wants to earn $140 in interest. What interest rate must the bank offer? So again, now I have a problem. It doesn't have those little boxes with arrows indicating to me the important parts. So I'm going to have to go through and find the important parts all on my own. So it says Jessie is looking for a bank with a good interest rate. She has $350. So that's a number that's probably pretty important. She's going to invest it for 5 years. That's another number with a amount of time on it. So that's important. She wants to earn $140 in interest. So again, important. And what is the interest rate? So now that I've gone through and I've found the important parts of my problem, let's see what each of those are. So $350 that she's going to start with, that is most likely going to be my principal. So I'm going to mark that as such. 5 years, I see the year, so that's probably going to be time. $140 in interest is going to be interest. And what is the interest rate? That is R. So now I'm going to plug the things into the formula that I know I have. So I know I have interest of $140. I know my principal is going to be $350, so I'm going to plug that in. I don't know the rate. It says, what is the rate? I don't know what that is, so I'm going to put R down. But I do know the time is 5 years. So now I'm going to multiply the things that I have and set up my equation. I know 140 doesn't change, so I'm going to bring that down. 350 times 5, I can do that right in my calculator, and that gives me 1,750 R, because again, I couldn't multiply that R times anything. It's a variable. So now I've got myself an equation. I'm going to draw a line down from my equal sign or a wall. I'm going to divide both sides by 1,750. The 1,750 on both sides is going to cancel out to 1 or 1R. Then I can use my calculator to type 140 divided by 1,750. And when I did that, I get 0.08. Now, it gave me a decimal, but the problem says, what is the interest rate as a percent? So I'm going to have to turn my decimal back to a percent. So I'm going to have to move my decimal place 2 places to the right. And when I do that, I end up with the rate equaling 8%. And it's important to put that percentage sign there because I have a word problem, so I need to have a word answer. Let's move on to example D. Here we are in example D, and it says Zach looked at the statement for his car loan. His loan is for 4.5 years at 5.2% interest. After 4.5 years, he owes $2,679.30 in interest. How much did Zach borrow? So again, it doesn't have those cute little boxes that help me identify where things are in the problem. So I'm going to have to do that for myself. It says his loan is for 4.5 years. Years is important. It's got a number and time. 5.2%. I see a percentage point and the word interest. After 4.5 years, he owes $2,679.30 in interest. So how much did Zach borrow? So it sounds like, since we're trying to figure out how much he started with borrowing, that we're going to be looking for our principal. So we're going to write down everything else that we have. So we know we have the $2,679.30 in interest. So that's going to be our I. I don't know what the principal is, so I'm going to just put P for now. I do know that the rate is 5.2%, but again, I can't put 5.2% in. Even though it has a decimal in it, it is still a percent. It is just a percent with a decimal, not a decimal. So I'm going to have to move my decimal place 2 places to the left in order to figure out what that decimal is going to be. And it looks like 0.052 is correct. So we're going to put in our decimal 0.052. And we know that our time is 4.5 years, but again, I can't put the half in there, so I know a half is 5, so 4.5. So now that I have everything that I'm going to have, I'm going to multiply my 4.5 times my 0.052. That's going to give me 2,679 on one side, and then 0.234p on the other side. Remember that I have my decimal there. Now I'm going to solve my equation by drawing a line down from my equal sign or my wall. I'm going to divide both sides by 0.234. Since I've done that to P, 2.234 and 0.234 are going to cancel out and give me 1 or 1P. And then $2,679.30 divided by 0.234 is going to give me 11,450. But since this is a word problem, I need a word answer. So I'm going to put a dollar sign here. So it's $11,450 is the principal. That's how much money he started with. Let's take a look at how we calculate total balance. Now, when a problem tells us to find the total balance, we find the balance of a bank account or a loan by taking the interest plus the principal will give us the total balance. So the amount of money that you borrowed originally, the principal, plus the interest, the amount of money that you're going to owe for borrowing that amount of money, or the amount of money that you're going to get back for investing it, when you add those two things together, that gives you the total balance. You can't find the total balance with just the interest or just the principal. You have to find it with both of them by adding them together. So let's take a look at how that applies in example E. So here we are in example E, and it says Michael borrowed $830 at 6% for 2.5 years. What is the total amount of money that Michael must pay back? Remember, when you borrow money from the bank, you don't just pay them their interest. That's just a small amount of the money you borrowed. You have to also pay back the original amount of money that you borrowed. Otherwise, the bank is going to be quite unhappy. They'd be losing money in the transaction, and that's not what they're looking to do. So let's go through the problem and see what important pieces that we can pull out. So he borrowed $830 at 6% for 2.5 years. What is the total amount? So in order to find the total amount, remember, I have to have both the principal and the interest. Good news, they gave me the principal because it says he borrowed $830. However, they did not give me the interest. I'm going to have to calculate that, but luckily I have an interest formula for that. So I don't know what the interest is, so I'm going to leave that as I. I do know the principal, $830. We just talked about that. I know that my rate is 6%, but again, I can't put percentages in my formula. I need to turn it to a decimal. So the decimal for 6% is 0.06. And then again, I have 2.5 years. So again, I can't put the half in there. I got to turn that to a decimal. So that's going to be 2.5. Now I'm going to be able to just multiply all these together. Luckily, I don't have to solve an equation here, so I can just type that straight into my calculator. And when I do that, I should end up with I equaling 124.5, but again, we're talking about money, so I'm going to make this 50 because it's going to be 50 cents, but that's not the end of the problem. The end of the problem doesn't say find the interest. It says find out how much money he owed total. So I'm going to have to talk about the principal. That's how much money he borrowed, so the $830 plus the interest, which was $124.50 that we just calculated. So we're going to add those two together, and when we do that, then we'll get our total balance. So we can do that straight in our calculator. And when we do, we get $954.50. So that's how much money he's actually going to owe the bank. He borrowed $830 and he's going to pay back $954.50. Now, why did he have to do that? Why does he have to pay more than $154 more than what he borrowed? It's because he wanted to borrow all that money all at once. So if you want to borrow a lot of money at once, you have to pay interest in order to do that. That brings us to the end of this video. So if you like this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.